My guest today was a finalist in the 2022 Seattle International Comedy Competition. He's been featured on The Needling and on ebaumsworld.com. Excited to welcome Timmy, the Big Bad Boof, Booth.
Thank you. That nickname, yeah, it's a mouthful. But I paid you to call me that, so.
Yeah, man. How you doing?
Pretty good, yeah. Just chilling.
Yeah. Have you, I've been traveling a little bit, so I haven't seen you for a minute, but how was, you just headlined a club?
Yeah, I headlined at Club Comedy. It was supposed to be 4 shows.
Yeah.
One of them didn't happen, but yeah, it was really fun. That was my first headlining weekend at a comedy club, so.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, they had.
How did it go? Like, how were the sets? Were you doing an hour or 45?
45 minutes, yeah. And I don't know, I kept being like, oh, I got to wrap this up. Because I don't know, that was a big fear of mine, is doing 45 minutes. They had me kind of do a tester a few months ago, just one-off show on a Thursday, and that went really well. So I knew I could do it, but then, like, yeah, when they gave me the light, I'm like, oh, I still got like 2 more jokes to do. I was like, this is rad, and people seem to like it. We had one bachelor party that rolled in, which was a little worrisome, and then they rolled out just as quickly.
Really?
They're like, they were super hype and stuff, and then when you talk to them, they're like, we don't want you to talk to us. And I just kept talking to them, and then they're like, we gotta go. I'm like, oh no.
Was that which night was that?
That was Friday, like early show.
Early show Friday.
Yeah.
Huh.
But they were fine. I was like, you guys are fine. I think it's funny.
Which one did you cancel though? The Saturday late?
Friday late was canceled because it was, I think, like 6 people showed up, and they're like, 10 people have to be here.
Yeah.
And I'd rather that.
What is it? Steve Martin said that the Friday late show was why he quit stand-up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's the worst show.
Yeah.
It's so bad. Before we jump in any further, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, notifications bell so you don't miss our content. God, I haven't done this for a minute. Sorry, I'm like just a little spotty. And we are on Patreon, patreon.com/FNFpod. So yeah, Steve Martin said the Friday late show was kind of the reason why he quit stand-up. And I've seen so many bad late shows on Friday.
I think it was a mercy that they didn't make me go up there for 45 minutes.
For 6 people.
It could have been interesting, but at the time I was tired. I'm like, I did my good set earlier. Let's just, I'm fine.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's tight though. How long have you been doing stand-up for?
Well, I started in 2009 at my college.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Actually, 2008. I think. Anyway, yeah, one of those years. I had seen, my college had a comedy competition called Last Seahawks Standing. We were the Seahawks, UNC Wilmington represent.
Okay.
And I had done some like creative writing in the past, and I was like there in my freshman year watching all these people, and the prize was like $150. I was like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
For just writing jokes. And so like I wrote jokes for a year, and then came back in 2008 and like won the competition.
You won it?
Yeah, and that was my first time ever doing stand-up.
Were you nervous about performing though?
Yeah, I remember my hands were like shaking on stage, like as I was grabbing the mic. And everyone saw how nervous I was, and they're like, this kid. Like, it felt like I was just some weirdo that had showed up.
Yeah, it sucks, man. Especially when if you can write jokes, but then you don't know how to perform at all, like, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't know. Performing is still something that's not, I don't think a lot of people realize that. Like, when I started around here, like, I had crazy performance anxiety. Like, I think I rubbed people the wrong way because
you were just so nervous.
So nervous all the time. And so people would come up to me like, because there's, there's different types of comedians in terms of what they're like off stage. And they'd come up to me and be all like jazzed up and excited and be like, just fucking like, I'd be chain smoking in the alley. I was terrified. Dude. One time, Nick Dundas, he saw me outside, like, in an alley somewhere. I was listening to Dropkick Murphys before, like, trying to get in the right headspace. He's like, what are you doing? Like, he just shit on me so hard, dude. But so you drove, or you did that competition, and then did you jump right into it or what?
So it took me a while, but yeah, something interesting about that competition, like, this was like 3 years before I'd met Lauren, but she was in the crowd and like remembered me.
Really?
But when we met, she didn't say anything about it. Like that would have made me less nervous talking to her, But yeah, so that was the first time I did stand up, and then I didn't really.
That's your wife for anybody listening.
Oh yeah, Lauren was there in the crowd.
Yeah. Do you think that's what like the work was done?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Judging by the stopping and starting of our relationship when we started dating, yeah, no. It would probably helped her be like, this guy's not an absolute creep.
Yeah.
So. But
what were you like in college?
I was like the party guy. Like it was my like first time being social really outside of like a small group of people. Like I was so shy in high school and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so senior year of high school, I started being like more talkative to random people, and then college was like me, like being like, I'm a new person, I'll just talk to anyone.
Were you drinking in high school though?
No, not really.
Or you didn't party at all?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Just
when you
like,
got to college though, were you that kid that like once you got there?
Not for the first couple of years, but then once.
What was your drink?
We used to get this British guy to buy us like Sailor Jerry's.
What's that?
It's a spiced rum. I would always just have a bottle of Sailor Jerry's.
Yeah. Were you living in a house or were you in the dorms or what? I don't know anything about that school.
Yeah, I was on campus until senior year.
Until senior year?
Yeah.
Damn. What, like an RA or what? Why?
No, like we had, so you start in a dorm and then they're like suites, which are like more open dorms. And then they have like on-campus apartments. And that's what I was. So it's basically an apartment, but.
What was your, I'm just curious because I lived with a buddy from high school. We both went to school together, it made it better, but like, what was your freshman roommate situation?
Oh, I had the worst one on my floor. Like I became friends with this guy named Ian that was on my floor, and he's like my best friend through college.
Yeah.
But my actual roommates, there's this guy named Donald Funkhauser, who was very regimented. And I don't know, me and my friends would come hang out in our dorm. I didn't think we were obnoxious or anything, but like he, after the first semester, moved to a different dorm.
Just because
he didn't
it was
like
just
me.
You, the two of you?
Yeah. And
so
then,
who'd you get after Funkhauser?
And I got this other guy who was like a mess. Like our dorm was like smaller than this living room, and it was like, or the studio.
Yeah.
Our dorm was smaller than this fabulous studio. But like his half was just filled with clothes all the time. Like he would just pile his clothes on the floor.
This was the second guy?
Yeah, and it would like spill onto my side.
Did you have like the line down the middle?
No, I mean it was an invisible line, but I would just, I tried to stay out of the dorm as much as possible.
Oh, dude, it was rough.
And he would like stay up. This is when I started using a sleep mask. It's just so hard. I don't know. I couldn't sleep. He'd have lights on. But one time I got sick. And I was like snoring, I guess. And I woke up to a text message from him, but I think he texted the wrong person, or else it was some sort of mind game. But he said, I didn't sleep at all. Timmy snores so loud. And I was like, is that meant for me?
Did you say something to him?
No.
Oh, man. And then, yeah, there's no way that was meant for you, though.
No.
If it's Timmy.
But I don't know if it was like reverse psychology. I think about it.
It's sometimes. Not bad. Was he like a big dude, like bully type?
Kind of. He would like bully. He was friends with a little person.
Okay.
And they made t-shirts like bullying a girl at one point.
Really?
I remember them having like meetings at our dorm. They're like, we're gonna get her.
The dorms were weird. That was I remember there was one guy. So I lucked out. Like our whole like end of the corridor was really good. So we had like 3 or 4 rooms that everybody hung out together. One guy that ended up out here was our RA. Like I met him again and he kind of went, he's has some problems.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into it too much, but he was like a great RA, and we all hung out together. But dude, it was a long hallway, right? And you had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the hallway, so you passed by all these rooms, and there was one room where like you could smell under the door because it's just dudes that like engineers at Purdue that like they're fucking cooking in their room, and they're just like they're not showering and bathing.
It's
like
their first time ever outside of their home.
Yeah, and there was a lot of international students. So the food they eat stick, and it was just we couldn't drink in the dorm. We couldn't fucking really hang out that much because there was like sound things. But for the most part, it was pretty fun. We had a good time. But I just remember every time I went past that kid's like room, that it would like waft under his door. I'd be like, what is that? Like, there's something about like people not washing themselves. It generates a smell that is out of control. I mean, it was fun though. Like, did they have a Greek system where you were at?
Yeah, but it wasn't like domineering or anything like over the culture of the school. Like, I don't know. We went to a couple like frat parties, but it wasn't a big thing.
Yeah, it sucked at ours. I couldn't get into it. They had the elephant walk.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
You haven't heard of that?
No.
It's like allegedly. They never got confirmation of it, but there was this frat at Purdue where like everybody talked shit about the fraternity, and they were kind of the running joke, but they had the best parties, and all the sororities would want to go to their house and shit. I don't know what they had, but there was this bathroom they had at their house where like they ripped the stalls out. So there were 3 toilets like in like Saw or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That open, they just shit next to each other.
Ugh.
Super weird, right?
Yeah.
But the joke of that fraternity was that initiation's the elephant walk, where they go in the middle of the night onto the football field, and the guy in front you have to grab the guy in front and behind you, and they had to by their dick, obviously, and walk I don't know, but they didn't have that at your school?
No.
Super weird, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest reasons I didn't get into the Greek system. Like I was always out of that. I felt weird, you know?
Yeah. It seems like, where is Purdue?
Indiana.
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of bored people there. It seems like
we just partied all the time. It got to the point where I was drinking every night, just out of boredom for the most part.
Yeah, UNC Wilmington is on the coast, so it was like kind of surfer bro.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so there was a lot of partying. If you go there now, there's still a lot of partying. Like downtown is pretty sick, but it was mostly like, I don't know, if you're bored, you could just go to the beach, and
That's
like
tight.
we'd go at night and stuff, and like watch lightning storms,
bonfires and shit. That's tight.
It was cool. Yeah, and there's a comedy club there that had just started when I was sort of like finding myself after that competition, and then I was like, oh, there's an open mic, like I should try this, because the competition, the guy who ran like the campus entertainment like learned about me from there, and he was like an awkward dude.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think he had a lot of comedy connections, and so I was like his guy, and like he let me open for all these people that were coming to campus.
Really?
Yeah. And I was in way over my head.
Who'd you open for?
Like Maria Bamford, TJ Miller, Brandon T. Jackson. That was like my prize for winning the competition, like the booty sweat guy from Tropic Thunder.
This is like out of isn't Crashing? There's a scene in Crashing about a kid that wins his college competition.
Wow,
and then,
maybe it's about me.
It's he was a little different, but he ended up getting like passed at the cellar in that. Yeah. So that's crazy. What were you doing well, or were you just eating it?
Mostly eating it. Yeah. It was a lot because I was like, well, I did those jokes already, and I was like, I should write new jokes instead of like refining. Because I was like, oh, how many different people are going to come to each show? And it was like probably a completely different crowd.
Every time.
Yeah. And I felt some sort of like sense of honor. Like I got to do new jokes.
How long did you do that for?
I mean, that was probably like a year after the competition.
Yeah.
And then I found Nut Street, which was the comedy club there. I think they had started at like a pizza place doing an open mic every week. It was this guy, Timmy Sherrill. And he ended up opening like his own club in this basement of this really cool music venue called the Soapbox. So it was like you could do laundry in the first floor, and there's a band and a bar, and then the second floor was like an art gallery. It became like a tattoo parlor. The third floor was another venue. Like I saw the mountain goats there and stuff. It was awesome, and there was like a back bar. So it was like they would have these things called We Fest Fridays. That was the first time I ever went there, and it was like $1, and it was just bands on every floor.
Damn.
And I remember the basement before it was a comedy club. I remember like hanging from one of the like pipes as a band was playing. Like it was rowdy.
That's sick.
But yeah, Timmy Sherrill opened a comedy club down there, and it was like every Thursday was open mic, and it was like standing room only, craziest open mic I've ever been to. Just sick.
Really?
Yeah.
Good?
Really good.
But people weren't, was that the only mic that you had?
Yeah, for years.
Yeah.
So it was like, that was me throughout college until I moved to Charleston, was going to that mic every week and like writing new jokes. And the venue moved a couple times. Now it's called Dead Crow, and they have their own like venue / food truck park. Like it's really awesome.
That's tight.
To see how they've grown this whole time. So,
but that had to have been weird to only be able to do stand up like once a week for 3 years or whatever, 4 years.
So it was slow starting out, but it was such a cool community. It like kept me going to it, and definitely gave me a sense of like self-worth maybe that I was looking for. Like, you know, during the week I'd be like, yeah, they don't know, but I'm a comedian. You know, It was like, and they were my people. It was awesome.
Anybody that like still stuck with it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys are still down there. There's Drew Harrison, moved to Nashville. He's doing pretty well. Lou Morganti is producing a bunch of shows there. I mean, I could name everyone, but yeah, Zach Burke's still at it.
But when you went to Charleston, you started being like, isn't that where you met Dusty?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that transition?
So after college, I started working as a production assistant on TV shows, and they had Army Wives there, was like their long running series. And it's like basically like Desperate Housewives, but the military, but it's on Lifetime.
Where they're like cheating on their husbands and shit?
Just drama. So much drama.
Is it scripted or is it?
Yeah, it's
okay,
scripted.
it's not like a reality show.
No. See, like all those housewife shows came later, so it does confuse people, like being like Army Wives. But it was a scripted, narrative show, kind of soap opera.
Yeah, and it's just about like them dealing with their husbands being away and being faithful. And did you watch the episode?
I watched one episode once, maybe two, but so I will say these are the nicest people on the earth that worked on that show. Super talented people.
Yeah,
I loved working on it. It was like such a family that they just like allowed me into. You know, they were on their 6th season when I got there, and they ended up making like 3 more, and so I got to be part of like the end of it. But they had been there so long, everyone knew each other. It was kind of like the Southerners versus the Hollywood people, a little bit, you know, like if a director was being a dick, like they couldn't really get away with it as much as maybe other shows because it was such like a, wholesome family. But I just say that because I want to paint a picture of that. I loved working on it. But we had a premiere. There's a Cinebar, which I think there's one up here in Washington. It's like a bar / movie theater. Mm-hmm. They rented out the whole theater. You sat in there, and me and Lauren were sitting there watching and like dying laughing, but like trying not to laugh because it was like so bad. It was funny.
Just horrible.
Like, I forget what the scene was. There was some orphan with a cake, and I was just like cracking up. And I'm like, these people were
orphan with a cake.
I can't remember the exact scene. I'll have to look it up. But we were like cackling. I'm like, Lauren, these people worked on the show. It's like their livelihood.
But why was it so bad? Was it
was just like
tone deaf, or was it just not good? Like the storyline was stupid.
I think, the dialogue was. I don't want to shit on it too much, but
sorry.
It's not. It wasn't my type of show, and it was a show. I don't know. Me and Lauren are very cynical.
Lifetime isn't really the network for you. Yeah. You know, like it's not programming meant for you.
We're very cynical people when we watch stuff. Me and my wife. Yeah, and that was just like
that's part of the fun of watching shit with a partner, right? You just make fun of everything.
And it just tickled something. I can't remember the exact scene, but we're just like cracking up in front of all these people that made the show.
Dude, that's great. You watch quite a bit of shit, right? Like
not too much lately. I mean, we'll pick a show. I have a hard time finishing stuff and following through,
Yeah.
just in general, but also with TV shows.
I'll just watch like a movie in like over 6 nights. I'll watch like 45 minutes of a movie. I am just finishing rewatching Dune.
Oh, nice.
Blake Kiltoff, like he was like, dude, you got to see this. I think I've watched it like 7 times.
Oh,
now.
really?
It's such a good movie.
Nice.
Like have you seen the old one?
No, and I haven't seen the new one.
You haven't seen the new
I read
one?
the book or listened to the audiobook before the new one
Aren't there
came
like
out.
7 books that you...
Yeah, they say with that series, like, keep reading until it starts getting bad because the author, like, died at some point and his son took over.
Oh,
but
God.
also each book gets more and more weird, I think, or something. So they're like, with Dune, just when you stop liking it, stop reading it.
Yeah. That's what my buddy Logan, he was telling me. He's like, the book, he got into it, and there's just so many levels of it. And it's really complex. Like, I like the movie a lot, but I'm sitting there, I'm like, I miss so much the first time I watched it, I was just like, this is a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Like,
it just looks
aesthetically,
nice,
it's very nice. But then the more you watch it, just get caught up in it. But I don't know how we got on Dune. Let's go back to Charleston. So you're working on Army Wives.
Which, when you're working
in
on
charge
a show,
of the scripts.
No.
And
Well,
the
kind of.
dialogue.
I'm not in charge. Well, I'm in charge of printing the scripts. I was an office PA, which, like, there's a production office, and that's where, like, we get emailed the scripts, we print out the scripts, we send them out to everyone. There's revisions. I gotta, like, collate it. I gotta go to the store and buy, like, office supplies. I gotta run to set and grab the actual footage. For a while, we were doing that. Like, every Friday, we would have a courier meet at the office, and I had to run to set, grab the hard drive, carry it in my car. All the work these people have done.
Just
and,
you had it all.
yeah, and then
God damn.
hand it to the courier, and then they'd go and hand deliver it to the plane and fly it to LA so they could edit it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I know they do something similar with South Park. Because I don't know, have you ever seen the making of
Yeah.
South Park? Yeah, they do that where it's like they hand it to a guy and he's like,
Yeah. I wonder if
running.
that's changed now with, like, better internet feed, like, stuff like that.
I don't know, because they broadcast it from wherever they were at to
Oh,
get
yeah.
it to LA, I think.
Oh, because they're so last minute, I guess. is
Yeah,
part of
it's
it.
just like day of. So you're doing that. When did you, was there clubs in Charleston?
There was an improv club called Theater 99, which was awesome. They would do a yearly Charleston comedy competition. So I got to
Oh
participate
yeah, I know
in
that.
Yeah.
I've never gotten it.
They also have a Charleston Comedy Festival, which is mostly improv. So I don't know if you were applying to which of
I may
those.
have been, yeah.
Yeah, but so I was working 12 and a half hour days on that show, which is like when you in film, it's like you work for like 4 months straight and it's the most hardcore, like crazy hours. Everyone's just drinking like crazy, any free time. Like they have some things called fratter days sometimes where the crew will have to work into like Saturday morning. And so a lot of times people would just leave from that and go to the bar. Like it was crazy. But yeah, so I was pretty busy with that. And so I didn't commit to comedy that hard while I was in Charleston because I was like, this is crazy. I'm working on a TV show. I got to like do this.
Yeah. Was the
And-
money good at least?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
for what my rent was, like I ended up, it actually helped me a lot when I moved to Seattle and stuff. Even now, I'm still like thankful that I had so much savings and it was like hard to spend money when you're working so
For sure.
much. And
What
so
was Lauren doing while you were,
she was getting her master's degree. So
Okay.
she was in North Carolina still.
so it didn't drive you crazy, like, or didn't drive her crazy? Just
No, yeah. And yeah, she gets it. Like she works long hours now on like a whale watching boat. So I don't know. We've always been like fine with being apart for some amount of time. You know, it's like just how it goes. But the times I would go do comedy, like Dusty was like ruling the scene at that time. Like he was running mics. He had his own homegrown showcase at Theater 99 eventually. He had just gotten sober and was just like crushing it. Like it was like this guy is such like a inspiration. Like
Was he Dusty at that point? Like the hat, the glass, like all of that?
no, at that point he didn't have the hat. He had the glasses. I don't think he had facial hair when I met him.
Really?
Yeah. And he definitely like lost a lot of weight at a certain point. So he looks different now than when I met him for sure.
Was he doing Grand Ole Opry yet?
No, that was long. So he moved from Charleston to Nashville. That's where he got like an agent, and that's when he started really.
That's when he popped off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked with him. I think you remember that weekend, and it was. I mean, he was crushing, dude. He was so good, but his development is. I don't know a ton about it, but to start there and then go to Nashville, like those are both pretty small scenes, right?
I think Nashville's getting bigger with like Zany's there and Nate Bargatze and all that. So
yeah, and then two buddies, Ryan McComb and I think Rob Wentz. I don't know if you know those guys, Eastern Washington guys. They both moved to Nashville.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've heard it's really fun.
Yeah, that's where Drew Harrison from Nut Street moved out there. I think he's having a good time.
Yeah, and it's like,
having a good. That's Dusty Slay's catchphrase. No, it's in my head.
Dusty. So there's Dusty. His Nate's guy, Aaron Weber is out there. And Aaron produces their podcast with, I mean, that's a pretty powerhouse combination of people.
It's wild. Yeah. Watching Dusty get like into that scene was cool because I remember being excited the first time he was on Nate's podcast. I was like, dang, Dusty's on here now. And now he's like a regular, you know?
Yeah, because he got Netflix and all that shit. I don't know when I was working with him, he was talking about Grand Ole Opry, but I'm just trying to, I don't even remember back entirely, but what do you know anything about that? I know my parents have seen it.
It's been it's like a Southern thing that's been around forever. I think they broadcast it on like PBS or something. Maybe I'm wrong, but
is it a radio show or is it?
It's a live. I know they film it, but for me, it's always been like my dad would reference it. It's like a cultural reference of the South. It's just like this is our big art show. I mean, it's
that's like the SNL
music
for the South.
It's not comedy mostly,
but they do have. God, what the? My parents like watch. It's either that or something else.
Prairie Home Companion.
That's like, the shit they watch.
Prairie Home Companion is more comedic and like sketches and stuff.
But didn't is it Harrison Keeler? Is that the
Garrison
name?
Keeler.
Garrison Keeler. Yeah, he got in some.
Yeah, he got NPR canceled.
He had a bugaboo. It's all of those shows. I in those regions they seem really popular, but I mean, do you know anybody that watches or listens to either one of those out here?
Not out here. I used to listen to Prairie Home Companion.
Really?
Like there was a phase where I was in my NPR phase, and my parents would like we'd go out to dinner. And like I remember on the way home, usually timed out, that we'd be listening to Prairie Home Companion.
Really?
Yeah. I sort of enjoy when I was in elementary school, early elementary school. I remember I used to had like summer care. What do you call that? Like daycare. I would go to a daycare center where my parents were working when I was like younger. And I remember my friend had a radio, and we would put on Christian radio, but it was like a kid's show, and it was like a regularly scheduled thing. And it felt like I was getting away with something. Like I'm kind of watching TV right now, but it was just this like cheesy Christian
radio show.
And I was like, this is rad. Like we're basically watching TV. So something about regularly scheduled radio programming is comforting to me.
Tickles you.
Yeah.
Did you listen to it like when you were going to sleep at night?
Oh, me and my brother would listen to Loveline. Yeah.
With Dr. Drew?
Yeah.
That's interesting. That was Corolla too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what year this was or what the whole arc is. I don't know if he was always there. Corolla?
What station was that AM?
No, I think it was just like one of the like 107.5 like normal stations.
But it was like a syndicated show.
Yeah,
right?
and it would come on at like 11 or something.
Huh. Yeah, that's so. I never caught any of that. I used to listen to Corolla's podcast. Was one of the first ones I started listening to, but it was basically a radio show.
Yeah,
I think it still kind of is. Whereas I know him and Dr. Drew did that for years. But have you listened to Corolla's podcast?
Maybe like early on. I don't.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
It's very different. I think just having somebody with like he's one of those people that him and like Colin Cowherd, where they can just them alone, they can talk and be interesting.
And like Bill Burr is kind of like that too.
Yeah. I think you got to be kind of crazy to be that way, right?
Yeah, it's like you're arguing with yourself or like fighting some invisible person. You're building this whole like narrative. I don't know. It's like, because I don't know, with Bill Burr, he's like always like, it's almost like philosophical arguing. Like he's setting up points and just like breaking down any possible like
argument back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't listen to his podcasts. I never really have, actually. There's too many podcasts.
There's too many podcasts.
Be watching or listening to this one. Before I got into stand-up, I was listening to him a lot. I've gotten into him a little bit more again, but Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast, like, I don't know if you've listened to that at all.
No.
It's pretty good. Do you listen to anything?
Me and my wife listen to the Always Sunny podcast a lot.
It's so funny.
Yeah,
dude.
it's good. And then we like Doughboys.
What's that?
It's two guys that review fast food restaurants, but they're kind of comedy guys, comedy writers, comedy actor.
I think I may have heard somebody wanted me and Thomas Nichols to do like a version of that at Arby's. And I was like, no, I don't. I can't eat Arby's, dude.
If I'm tying it back around though, I remember in Charleston, while I was like running all these errands and stuff, I would listen to like WTF, like all of it.
Really?
And, like I wasn't doing that much comedy at the time, like, you know, once a week, twice a week.
So Marin was one of your guys?
Yeah, and just listening to that for like advice and like insights and stuff. I felt like I was like, you know, in comedy school or something, listening to that. Just like hearing what comics were going through, how they wrote, stuff like that.
It's funny because Marin, I think he's like helped a lot of people with that and guidance and stuff, but I've heard so many people be like, that guy's a maniac. Like that he's just not a fun person to be.
Yeah.
I feel like I have some stuff in common with Marin. Like I just am not the easiest person to be around. But yeah, it's that whole generation of podcasting was so different.
Mm.
Like now it's like everything has to be a show and like super niche
and with that segments and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just is. It's completely different, but that's why nobody's listening to this. This. So what brought you out here? I mean, you're doing shows with Dusty. You're like in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Or wait, no, that's South Carolina.
South Carolina. And I wasn't like Dusty had a couple guys he would like tour around with. I was not one of them. I was just, you know, an open mic friend. But yeah, so I'd always wanted to move to the West Coast or just out of the Carolinas because that's where I'd been my whole life. And Lauren graduated and she like wanted to be somewhere with orcas. And I was like, let's just go to Seattle. There's orcas and comedy there.
There's the whales.
Yeah. So that was a big reason. Like we both moved out here. I'd never been here. She had been here before. And she always tells people, yeah, Timmy had never even been to Seattle before. But I don't know. I don't think that's that big a deal.
No.
In my mind, I was like, we could always move somewhere else after or whatever. And so, yeah, we drove here like 7 or 8 years ago.
How different was Seattle from that part of the country?
Oh, extremely. I still struggle with it. I'm still like, I'm going to move any day. Like I always complain to Laura. I'm like, I got to get out of here.
What specifically?
Just the people.
Like the politics, what?
Socially, I think is the hardest thing for me. It was culture shock. I didn't know that I was experiencing it. I thought I was like cool with anything, but just like the openness of the South to talk to strangers, and you go to a bar and it's like, hey, I'll buy you a drink. And like it's just like friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And here it's like completely devoid of
everybody's like on edge.
It's like it's hard for me sometimes, like to just like go around. See, I have this like smoldering anger. You know, I'm just like, why are you guys like this? What is this?
It's funny. I think I have like a anxiety disorder or just social anxiety and shit. So I'm naturally on like that way. So here it's been great. Like,
so for me, I definitely have social anxiety, but in the South, I always found people that were very sociable and hang out with them, and you know,
balance it out.
They draw your personality out. It's like, and sometimes I would be that person, but like most of the time, I'm more introverted. But here, where I am introverted, everyone else is introverted, and it's just
awkward,
closed down, and it feels
It just feels like a lot of like judgment too in this city, and it's a hard place to do stand up. When I started here, and I thought that like everybody hated me because of the way I looked. And now I'm like, oh, I think they just don't like me because they don't know what they like. Like it's the weirdest place to try and make people laugh because they're offended super easily. They don't really, there's no training of audiences out here. Like they don't know what stand-up comedy is. They just know their concept of what they've seen on TV. And then everybody's version of that is different. Like in New York, probably 9 out of 10 people in the audience have been to a show before in their life. And then on top of that, they may have been to one earlier that month. So it's just culturally, they don't really know what comedy is here.
Yeah.
And then you have to do the like breaking it down for them and like making it simpler for them.
Yeah.
It's just,
I do think it makes me stronger in other places if I can do well here.
Sure.
But sometimes it's like, I should be doing better here. But then you go to like Portland or Vancouver, even just like right up north or south. And I'm like, they love me here.
Yeah.
I should live here.
They're also way smarter in Seattle. Like, well, way more educated. Like, and they understand references and like they're just like sharper audiences. Whereas if you go outside, I mean, we did the competition together.
Represent. I got a little dog on me.
Yeah.
The
Show it to the camera.
This is.
You get coffee stains underneath it.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, you go outside the city and it's like they don't know this, they don't know that, and then fucking I think doing both has helped me a lot. But yeah, if you don't the people that I meet like on the road that have never worked major markets, especially like left major market, you hear them say something on stage and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What are you doing?
Because that had to have been going on in South Carolina, right? Like,
oh yeah, I became like numb to it almost. Like now when I go back to North Carolina, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what they're doing.
yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. I think it has the level of sensitivity to that sort of like insensitive material has gotten up in North Carolina. Like I saw someone walk a couple people at the mic last time. I was like, dang, all right. So there is like a limit. And the younger people are like, no, this is messed up, man. And just like walked out. So.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a weird, even like seeing some pros. I was watching Chris Rock's special not too long ago. And I was just like, this just feels like there's something about when male comedians get older and they're talking, like, it's like when you're a social commentary guy and like you are insulated from the world and shit. Like it's weird to hear the perspective on it because you're like, he's got to have a take, but like I don't know if he really is dialed into reality that much anymore.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. You might like Steve Martin might have had the right decision, retired from stand up early.
Yeah, I don't know if that's. I mean, Chappelle, that's a whole different conversation, but like. It's just a weird thing to see a lot of these guys that's their sort of thing, get older and develop and shit. But I don't know. I'm sure.
excited to see Zach Galifianakis. I've seen Derek Sheen was down in LA and was on a show with Zach Galifianakis, who was the guy when I was getting ready for that comedy competition. He had the first Netflix special, which was live at the Purple Onion.
It's so good.
And my friend showed it to me, and I just watched it over and over, and like that helped me like write jokes and stuff. He was like awesome, and then he kind of disappeared. But I remember hearing him on WTF be like, he's still living in like the house he had before The Hangover and stuff. And I felt like he was intentionally remaining like down to earth.
Sure.
And now I feel like he's been gone for a bit, and now he's like back to doing sets. So I'm like, I hope he comes out with something.
The person I think does it better than anybody is Kanane. He is like the shit he puts out is so good. Like he's putting content out that's on par with New York, LA comics, and he's doing it from Beaverton.
Yeah.
Like small town in Oregon. Like that doesn't make any fucking sense to me. It's crazy to me that he can still produce at that level and not, because most guys, when they're like, yeah, I'm just going to work it out on the road and shit, there's a huge drop off. Like I know he still works in Portland and shit and like gets up but he doesn't need to be around like these. I think most of the time it seems like the best comics want to be around the best comics. Whereas I think he just saw the bullshit of LA and he's like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Which is tight. But yeah, let's talk about the contest and then we'll get into your story.
Okay.
So you killed it in the contest this year.
Yeah.
2 times, right? That's where I gave you the nickname Big Bad Boof down at Nate's Club.
Oh, yeah, true.
Super funny comedy, or funniest MF for competition.
I always forget about that one. Yeah, that was crazy.
I was thinking about it before you came over today. At one point, you made fun of the judges.
Yeah, and I think one was Nate's sister. I didn't know that at the time. But she had tried to make a joke while judging someone else.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know the judges were supposed to be funny or something like that. And
Yeah.
like,
Wasn't that how you came out,
Yeah.
too? It was the first thing you said on stage.
yeah.
Like, dude, that was one of my moments. Like, I worked with you a lot, but we hadn't crossed paths a ton. And I remember you were one of the first people I met in Seattle in comedy. You were at Naked Brunch.
Oh, yeah.
And you were riffing with Henry, I think, that day. And I was like, this dude is so fucking fun. Like, it was the first time I had met anybody that had your style, where you're like really heavy on riffing and like just you're fucking great in the moment and shit. And you did that at Nate's competition where you showed just these skills of being fully present. And then, I mean, dude, some of the pictures of you captured it really well too. Like you got your loop pedal and all this shit. Like, what inspired you to use a loop pedal in that situation?
Well, I had been bored at my open mic a bunch, and so I had started using a loop pedal there, and I was excited about those jokes. I don't know. I don't think, like, I didn't take that competition seriously, I guess, as much as I should have, but I was just like, I'm just gonna mess around. I don't know. It was like, my goal there was like, I've really bombed at this club a lot, and like, it's a predominantly black club, and I want to do well. And so I'm like, I'm going to do high risk stuff.
Yeah.
Because what else do I have? Just the same jokes I've written. People don't really receive them that well. So I was like, I don't know. I just saw.
Don't receive them well at that room, or?
Yeah, just like, I don't think they're in it for like one-linery white dude jokes there to try to be clever or something.
So you didn't feel like you were a right fit for that room in that style.
Yeah.
That version of you.
And so, yeah, I even took a class from like Nate because he crushes it so hard there. And I was having such trouble. I was like, I want to learn from him because he's such a different comedian than me. And part of what he does is just crowd work, heavy crowd work that just like comes back on itself. It's so good.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I feel more comfortable doing crowd work with the loop pedal also because it gives me time to like pause or like play something dumb and then I can think of something else.
Yeah. That's crazy that you took his class, just with as much as like people shit on comedy classes and shit. I mean, you're 10 years in and you took his class, which says something. I remember, dude, I watched him work. The first time he did this podcast, it was like episode 96, I think. John Garden, I saw him work the night before, and it was that like circling back type crowd work.
Yeah.
And, dude, he wears them down too. Like it's incredible. I think he's the best host in this region. I mean, I'm trying to think of who is a better host. I mean, I don't know anybody off the top of my head, but that is such a like skill and recognized thing in rooms like that.
Yeah.
And we just don't really like in Seattle, nobody wants to host.
Yeah.
Like he wears it as like to own your own club and then be like, I'm going to host the show.
And he'll
like,
just roll in. He's so confident.
Yeah.
Just like, It's awesome.
It's also his room, so it's like it's not. If he dumps the show, it's like
it's fine, whatever. But he doesn't.
No, he doesn't, and it's really fucking good. So that got you to try the loop pedal and like mess around with it.
Well, yeah, that was, I don't know, some of my favorite. Yeah, Zach Galifianakis, Rory Scovel have always had this like loose style, and I was trying to bring that to my open mic, like chaotic energy. And so I saw a YouTube video for this loop pedal. I was like, I should get one. And then, yeah, I just started messing with it there just to keep myself entertained.
Yeah, I remember when you got it.
Yeah.
I was like one of the regulars at that mic. It's not doing as well, by the way, without you.
Oh, yeah. I need to go back. Shout out Joseph Knight.
Yeah, I saw him recently. It was like me, him, and one other person at the mic. No. Yeah, so
I told him I got to come back soon. He's doing a marketing push soon, so
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, Woodski's, shout out. So you did that competition. You ended up getting what, third or fourth or
fourth, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you go into Sick, and like there were a couple nights where it just completely stole the night. Like, I mean, it was incredible. I heard for the finals, like Mount Vernon, you were doing the theater up there.
Yeah,
and you were the last person to go up, and you came out with the
Booth stuff,
the family stuff.
Yeah, because it was the Lincoln Theater, so it was like perfect there.
Yeah, what did you say?
Booth. Oh, because I had been expanding that joke, but it's like, yeah, but my last name's Booth. My family hasn't been trusted in a theater, or probably I got specific because it was the Lincoln Theater since the Civil War. And then talking about like balconies, like if you're in the balcony seat, you can watch out and stuff.
Yeah, that's Brett Emerson, I was talking to him like a week after it happened, and he's like, dude, Timmy, it was a long show. All those shows are long. You went up last, which is a disadvantage in that moment, like depending on how you look at it, I guess. And he's like, you know, people were tired. It was the end of the show, and Timmy just like destroyed. Like with one line, you had them and like carried it out.
And that was like, you know, the culmination of that whole month of doing shows and like refining those jokes.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
What would you, I mean, I did the competition. I have a lot of thoughts on it. It's not an easy thing to like go. I mean, I think we both felt it. What advice would you have to anybody doing that moving forward?
Yeah, I would just have no expectations. Like I've applied to that competition like 6 or 7 years.
Really?
And that was my first time getting in. And it was just, you know, persistence. And once I was in, I was just like happy to be there. And then I was like, my goal is to make it to the second round. And then I did. And then now I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just keep going. And then it was like a lot about refining jokes. And yeah, because I used my loop pedal on 2 shows, which I probably wouldn't do looking back. But I was like, this is fun. I don't know. Maybe it was just 1 show. No, it must have been 2. But that's hard to judge when you're doing like something different. So that's what Roger Lazola told me, was like, yeah, there was another loop guy back in the day. And he's like, the judges didn't know what to do with them. And then I was like, you're right. And so then I just like, it gave me confidence in my material, and just, I was like, I got to count on this, you know?
Yeah. I definitely saw like a shift in you in like competition mode where you own the stage, and it was great to see, you know, like you probably carried more confidence than anybody in that competition. I mean, Ari, like, Ari, it's a different beast, but it was cool to see, man.
It was like, yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence as a person naturally, but when I knew these jokes were working and I was like punching them up, I was like, that gave me confidence. And I think Dusty Slay talks about that too, is like, it's mainly about being prepared. And then, yeah, that's where you can like riff and do weird stuff like I've done. Once you know you have jokes that work, it's like, then you can
start taking chances.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes Rory Scovel so good at it. Like, he knows he has jokes. Like, I don't know. I was just watching he reposted this set that I had never seen, but he was at Moon Tower Comedy Festival, and it was like the last night, and his shows hadn't been going well, or at least that's what he said on stage. But there's like this girder to build the set, and he starts climbing it, and it's like scary. He gets up like pretty high, and he's just like, this is it. If I fall, you'll know I did bad or something.
Dude, he's crazy.
But while he's up there in the middle of that, he like pretends to be like calling a guy or something, and then he just tells one of his jokes. But it's like hidden in this whole like weirdness. But he has jokes. He's like, I'll do a joke now.
Yeah.
He's like, what if you have two cocks? Is that too cocky? And it's like so dumb, but he like had it ready.
I've been getting into Bo Burnham a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And there are a couple guys, like I think him and Rory are the same way in that, like they're just very like original. It's fucking like there's certain people where it's just Nikita's that way. That like there's certain people where you're like nobody else is doing this thing, and it's. I mean, a lot of those guys are crazy smart too. Mm-hmm. I was working with Dwayne Goad recently, and he told me a story about fucking. he and Rory were sharing a hotel room, and it was, I think they were at like Vancouver for JFL or some shit like that, and it may have been a Yuck Yucks thing, but Jeff Brousseau was supposed to stay in the room with Dwayne, but he had to go back to Seattle for a gig, so Rory ended up staying in that hotel room, and Dwayne didn't know it or something like that. So Dwayne goes to sleep, and he wakes up to Rory in the other bed. Like, what the fuck? And I think what he said, I could be saying this wrong, so Dwayne, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I think he just, when he saw that Dwayne woke up, he just goes, shh. I wore a condom. Like, or I didn't wear a condom, one of the two.
That's great.
Yeah, super funny, man. All right. You ready for story time?
Yeah.
It's story time. It's story time with Ebaum. Yeah, it's story time. It's story time with Ebaum and friends.
Baby now.
It's just so much more than necessary, but go ahead.
Okay, so this is a story from my Charleston time. This was when I was like, I felt like I was a production assistant in TV. I was like, I can do anything. This is crazy. I've been working on a TV show. And so there was a break in between seasons. You know, you end a show and then you have to get rehired back next time. So this is an unemployment land, which I'm currently existing.
Fun employment.
Yeah. So someone I know, I won't say who, like during this time gave me a copy. Their union gave them a list of every production happening in the United States at that time. Mm-hmm. And they made a copy for me, probably against the rules. But I took it, and I had, at the time, 2 friends living in New York. And so I like messaged them like, hey, can I come up for like a month and just see what happens? And so I flew up. I was alternating between their couches, which was a whole thing in itself, like going up and down Manhattan with my bags every couple days. Because I was like, I don't want to be a burden on any one person. And at the same time, I was emailing every production that was happening in New York. And I was like living the unemployed life. I went to the free day at the US Open. I was in a taping for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire when it was like Meredith Vieira hosting it. And so when I got out, I had a voicemail that was this company or this production. They're like, hey, we need a costume PA. Will you come interview? And I went in, and it was called Woody Allen's Secret Project, but it became Blue Jasmine, which is like, if you look back now, it's like the most canceled cast of all time.
Who was it?
It's like Woody Allen, Louis C.K., Andrew Dice Clay, Alec Baldwin. But I was, this was before I knew anything about like Woody Allen's bad side. I mean, I might have heard hints of it, but it was before, cancel culture. Mm-hmm. He was still happily making movies. And I was a big fan. I'd written an essay about him. And so in college, in film school. And at the end of the interview went really well, and at the end, the production coordinator was like, "You're comfortable driving in the city, right?" And I was like, "Yeah," even though I'd never driven in New York at all. And so my first day on the job, well, the day before that, I was like trying to find lessons, driving lessons in the city. I couldn't find one because I was like so nervous. I'd only driven in Charleston. That was like the biggest city
my God,
I had ever driven in. And so my first task was to get a rental car and pick up the costume designer.
Okay.
And so it was basically like a month of pure panic, just like me living in the city on my friend's couch, just waking up at like 4 a.m., picking up the rental car from a parking garage, driving to set, which was usually on Long Island somewhere. Then at night, we'd drop off clothes and stuff. And the costume designer would be like, take me to Whole Foods. So then after this long day, I'd sit out there. She was awesome. She like worked on Ghostbusters and stuff. The whole costume base was in her apartment, which was like, an elevator just opened up to an entire floor. That was like her apartment in the middle of New York. She got it in the 70s, and it was like rent controlled and like so crazy nice. But the craziest time, I just kept pushing. I was like, I'll say I could drive in New York. This is me, just like I'll see how far I could go with this.
Yeah,
it almost felt like I was a scam artist, like an outsider, because I'm from North Carolina, not involved in Hollywood at all. Mm-hmm. And now, like, the first time I ever really had to parallel park was behind like Alec Baldwin's trailer, and it was a disaster. It was just a crazy time, and the last bit was filmed in the Hamptons, and so the crew was staying in one hotel, but my boss was like, I want him here in the morning so I can just hop in the car and go. So I was staying at this nice like private inn
in the Hamptons.
Yeah. And when we walked in, at the bar was Cate Blanchette, and the cinematographer. Like, she was the star of the movie, and she was just there. And I remember like taking my boss's bags to her room, and they're like, we'll be out to meet you soon, like her and her assistant. And I was like, can I go out there later? And she's like, make your own decisions. She like didn't tell me yes or no. She's just like, you make your own decisions. I'm like, okay, I'm going out there. And I go and like sit and drink with Cate Blanchett.
Really?
Yeah. And
were you creepy or were you cool?
I was cool.
Yeah.
I was like, I waited for my boss to get down there, and she like introduced us, and we were cool.
Nothing like, you didn't embarrass yourself. Or
no,
anything. Yeah.
I don't think so. But the bartender was like the hotel employee, and they were like starstruck, not by me, but Cate Blanchett was like, I'm kind of hungry. And this person was like, oh, I just got this Chinese food. Do you want this Chinese food? Like giving her their Chinese food. Just like, I wasn't going to eat it. I promise. I wasn't. And then
it's like, no. Yeah,
no, she took it.
She took it?
Yeah. And then I was like, can I have some of that? So I ate this hotel employee's food in front of them.
Blanchett's plate.
Yeah. And I guess, I don't know if this is a regret in life or if I made the right decision, but I'd been drinking a bit, and the costume designer was like, hey, and this was like after this long shoot where I felt like I was getting taken advantage of a little bit. She was like, will you drive us to dinner? And I was like, I've been drinking. And then I just went to my room. But I was like, I could have had dinner with all them. I don't know. I don't know if I was like, that was a good boundary, or
well, if you would have crashed the car, dude.
Yeah, that would have been.
Then it's a much different story. You crashed and killed all those people.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you're going to prison.
Yeah,
that's it. An adult Timmy in prison is not a great look.
And I wasn't even an adult then, really.
No. God damn. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's just name dropping. I don't know. It was a crazy time in my life.
Yeah, I had no idea about that backstory, so that's cool to hear.
Yeah, and then immediately after we were done shooting, I like went back to South Carolina. I was like, this is way too stressful.
Yeah, that sounds miserable being in New York, living that type of pace.
Yeah.
Like, you just must not have had time for anything.
No. And it was a brutal month. Sometimes, like, I don't think they would have ever asked me back. Like, that's how you get your next job. Because I would just like, while they were shooting, I would just like nap in the car because I was so tired.
Exhausted, yeah.
And they'd be like, because normally a costume PA would be like helping clothes and stuff. I was just like the driver, really.
Yeah.
At one point, we had to get jewelry from this high-end jeweler there. I can't remember the name. Like,
Adam Sandler and Uncut Gems.
yeah, so it was this fashion brand that you would recognize.
Tiffany.
So no, like shit. What is it? Anyway, but to get that jewelry, like they loaned
Shanko?
it. They loaned it to the production just because they knew it would be Cate Blanchett would wear it, but it was so expensive. Like they hired an armed guard to follow me to Long Island. Like we had the jewelry and he followed us.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Anything you want to plug or promote? Like, where can people find more of your stuff?
TimmyBooth.com. Set it as your homepage. It's all the Timmy Booth news you need. I'm on Instagram, timmy.boothy. Yeah, I just headlined a show and you missed it, but hopefully I'll have some more in the future.
Yeah, follow his Instagram for dates. If you do another one, let me know. I'll plug it so people can come support you.
Yeah, I'm doing some comedy festivals. I'm doing the Craft Island Comedy Festival and the Motor City Comedy Festival and the North Carolina Comedy Festival. If you're in Detroit or Calgary or my hometown of Greensboro, North Carolina.
Hell yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. If you have enjoyed the episode, make sure and rate and review us. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button and the notifications bell so you don't miss our upcoming content. We are on Patreon too, patreon.com/FNFpod. And as always, follow us on Instagram at FNFpod. We're going to leave you with Jaga.
Jaga. I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. My wave pool, my wave pool. Welcome to 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 my wave pool, my wave pool.